Hey, welcome to another episode of Gangster or Innocent. Really, this episode would be about from being gangster to law abiding. So, in a minute, we'll be having Ruthann Veal here to speak. At the time, she can't be here with us because of situations to her parole rules. So, my cousin Jerome will give an introduction to what we're going to be talking about today with Ruthann.
Good evening. My name is Jerome During Bay. I'm a coordinator, program director of rcsnow.org, which means Reform Crime Sentencing Now.org, and also on Facebook. And I had an opportunity to view some footage of a young woman by the name of Ruthann Veal, who was 14 years old at the time of her arrest and conviction for first-degree murder. The United States Supreme Court barred automatic life without parole, calling the law a violation of the Eighth Amendment of the United States Constitution, which is dubbed as cruel and unusual punishment. Now, the cases that preceded Miss Ruthann Veal's release from prison on parole was Roper versus Simmons in 2005, Graham versus Florida in 2010, Miller versus Alabama in 2012, Montgomery versus Louisiana in 2016, and Jones versus Mississippi in 2021. Graham versus Florida in 2010 invalidated life without parole sentences for people under 18. Montgomery 2016 clarified the issue of retroactivity. And if you remember, me and Mr. Bruton talked about retroactivity in another case that involved an individual being charged with murder, and I think it was reckless homicide or something along that particular line, but the guy's name was Hemstra. And so retroactivity has always been a key element when we get to talking about particular cases that affect people who have been convicted in crimes throughout the United States. Now, racial disparities, the disparities which prompted the move to bar the imposition of juvenile life without parole greatly impacted African American communities. A lot of people may not have been aware of that, being that African Americans have always been a small minority of this particular country, but they suffer more adversely when charged with state and federal offenses. And so African Americans were 62% more likely to receive life without parole than other adolescents who were similarly situated, but of a different race. On December 3rd, in 2013, a young woman by the name of Christian Fetters was granted one of the first paroles under that new law that took effect. A guy I know and did 10 years with in state prison, Terry Harrington, he got out in 2003, but he didn't benefit from this particular law that was handed down by the Supreme Court. Terry Harrington benefited from the fact that his case was overturned due to police misconduct in his case, and he was declared to be innocent of that particular charge. Everybody that views this particular footage gets something positive from it.
Welcome to another episode of Gangster or Innocent. Today, the episode will be about from gangster to law abiding. I have Ruthann Veal, and she will be telling us about her life story. She was one of the youngest that ever got locked up in Iowa, so today we want her to tell her story. So Ruthann, how long have you been out for?
About 2 years.
About 2 years. How much time did you do?
27.
27 years. So can you go back to like your childhood? How was your upbringing?
My mother is white. My father is African American. My mother was very abusive, which my father was abusive towards him, but we got the backlash of that. So I grew up with my mother calling me niggers every day, black pieces of shit, whores, whatever the name was for the day, we was called it. Or we was getting beat out of our sleep for no reason. I was a good kid and put up with all that and taking care of my siblings and so forth until I was 12, and then that's when I started running away and getting in the streets. 2 years later, I was arrested for first-degree murder.
Okay, and during that time of, you running the streets from 12 to 14, like, what was you kind of doing? Like, what activities was you doing?
Everybody as a kid wanted to feel like they need some type of acceptance, so I felt like I was getting acceptance out in the streets, or what name could I get for the day or whatever, because I was getting more recognition and felt more loved in the streets than I did in my house, if that makes sense.
Okay. So you hung around people, and what were they doing?
Gang banging, going to parties, the normal things that what kids do at that age.
All right.
Stealing.
So not going into detail, but kind of like with your case, how did you get involved?
With my case?
Yeah.
I won't talk about the day of that as of yet, but I will tell you the day, what led up to that. I was sentenced to go to Quakerdale, and I had earned a home pass to go home, and I had called to go home, but my mother would not let me go home.
So you was in trouble prior to that?
Yes.
So what happened for you to get in trouble prior to that?
Fighting. And they sentenced me. They tried to put me in Toledo. Toledo wouldn't take me, so I was sentenced to Quakerdale. So I got sentenced to Quakerdale, I want to say, in April of 1993, or was it May? I wasn't in Waterloo too long. I'm not. People think I'm from Waterloo, but I'm not. I was just there for the group home, and that's where I got my charge.
Okay.
But
So you got in a fight.
Yes.
That led you to the group home. Where did you get in a fight at school?
In Mason City. No, we was out of school. It's some home, it's not at my house, but at one of my friend's house we got to fighting.
Okay.
So she told her parents what happened. Their parents called the police, and then I got arrested. I got taken to the detention center, and then they sentenced me to Quakerdale.
Okay, so you get to Quakerdale. How long did you stay there for?
I wasn't there too long because I remember I had earned a pass to go home. It was around Memorial Day. I called my mother, asked to go home, and she told me no. And I asked my dad if he'd come get me. My dad was going to come get me. Then my mom said she'd call the police if he came got me. So I couldn't go home. So I packed up my bags. And that's how dumb that Quakerdale, I feel they were dumb that day. They watched me. I packed up 3 dumb bags and had a caboodle. Caboodles were in that time, and took it all on the school bus with me.
Okay. So where did you go from there?
To one of my friend's house. I want to say her name was Silk. I went to her house after school. I went and stayed at her house. Her mom did some stuff with foster care and all that stuff, so I thought I'd get away, and she thought I would as well, staying there with her.
Okay.
But when her mother found out I was on the run, she kicked me out. So I had to go stay with somebody else I had met just in passing. So the day, what happened the day of this event with me, what I done, her name was Annette Sexton. She had woke me up, arguing with me, accused me of wanting to sleep with her boyfriend. We have words about that because I'm not going to go into that. But anyways, I didn't sleep with her boyfriend, but she kicked me out and said that she was calling on me because she knew I was on the run. So I had left the house, and I remember running through a park. I want to say that particular park was called Burns Park. A cop had stopped me, asked me my name, and then he said my name, and I broke away from the cop. So I went and ran. I don't even know how far I got, but I remember there was these tall, like, bushes things, and hiding behind there until it became dusk.
Okay. So tell me what happened to lead up to what happened that day that you really can't talk about.
When I went to buy that house till dusk, I went walking and looking for lights on, and I remember knocking at the door, wanting to use the phone that day. And I was trying to call for a ride, but nobody would come get me. But she was very, very nice. I hate to this day what I did, but I can't change it because she was so nice to me. She allowed me to use her phone. She gave me orange juice. She talked with me and everything. Was really concerned, wanted to make sure I was okay.
Right. So the situation happens and you get arrested. So let's pick up when you get arrested. Where did you go? Did you go to Meyer Hall or did you go to the Grown jail?
I spent a day in jail first, and then they took me to the detention center. I stayed in the detention center for 6 months until I was waived to adult court. I got waived to adult court. They did the booking process. At that time, they were supposed to keep juveniles away from the adults. So I did, I want to say I did like 6 months in a cell by myself. Then at that time, Black Hawk County, they got overcrowded. So they had to put me in with the women. And that was a big shock for me.
So when you say a cell by yourself, did you have to stay in that cell all day?
All day by myself.
You didn't get out for an hour or nothing? You was just in that cell the whole time?
No, they'll let you out for an hour for rec.
Okay.
But everything like the toilet, the shower, my bed, everything was in my cell.
Okay. So, so you keep going. You was in there and you go to trial, you go to court.
Yeah, I got waived, I want to say, to adult court in November. It was like November 22nd of 1993, I got waived. And then I went to jail. And then when it got overcrowded, I went with the other women. After I had my trial, I want to say it was May of 1994. And I was found guilty. After my verdict was read, I had Alfredo Parrish as an attorney.
Okay.
And he's a joke. I basically paid for a life sentence. My grandparents lost their retirement. My mother lost her house. He was doing all these weird things with me, wanting to try to do an insanity defense when I kept telling him I wanted to testify. And he said I was too young, they would tear me up on the stand. He would never let me testify. After I was found guilty, the jurors said, had I testified, they would not have found me guilty of first-degree murder. So I cut the article out and I sent it to him. In the process of me being sentenced to life, let me backtrack.
Yeah.
After my verdict was read, my judge, the district attorney, the court reporter, and the victim's family went out and celebrated my verdict. I don't know how my attorney found out about it, but he did, that's what led me to spend 2 years in jail, because I had to get a judge from Dubuque to sentence me.
Why did you have to get a judge from Dubuque?
I don't know how they chose it. Judge Bush had to recuse himself. He had to step down, and then I got a judge. His name was Robert Kernan, to sentence me to life.
Okay.
And I left jail. I started my prison sentence November 15th, 1995.
So how was that going into a grown person's jail? At 14.
Let me put it to you in two different scenarios, so then you'll understand what it was for me. I've always been tall. My whole life I've been tall. And I have like a deep voice, like a very assertive voice. So where sometimes people find that intimidating or so forth because they don't like directness. But when I went in, at that time, 2 people classified you as to where you would go. And it was Terry Weeks and his name, Paul Rohde. They did my classification. And I remember Terry asking if I was going to go to special needs due to my age. And Paul looked at me and said, no, she's big enough, she can go out. Another juvenile came in a year after me, same sentence. She was smaller. Her mother was able to spend the night with her in Oakdale. As soon as she got in,
Hold on. Was able to spend the night with her in Oakdale?
Yes.
So she was in the prison.
She was sentenced, and you first go through Iowa Correctional Institute. Oakdale is Iowa classification.
Right.
So that's when the women went through there too. Now it's just men that go through there.
Okay.
But her mother was able to spend the night with her first day there. When she got to the prison, due to her size, because she was real little, they made sure she went to special needs and that she had therapy, like they checked on her all the time. I received none of that treatment.
Okay, so how did you deal?
Well, you got to figure it out. You show signs of weakness in there, they're gonna eat you. They're gonna eat you alive. So I had to figure out, like, even though like I'm real sensitive and was really scared, I couldn't let that be like shown.
Mm-hmm.
So I learned to use my anger and my sides to my advantage, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
And,
makes
and
perfect
throughout
sense.
time, it created a reputation for me.
Okay. All right, so you had to stand on yours.
Yes.
So people actually tried you at 14 or at your young age growing
Yeah.
up there?
I didn't make it into prison until 16 or 17.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
But
'Cause
they
you
would
said
try
it.
you in jail. Like, they would have people coming in. Like, the jail would get overcrowded. They would just give you a mattress and tell you to find a space on the floor.
Mhm.
I will never forget this. I woke up one night. I had a T-shirt on and my underwear trying to go to the bathroom. And then here comes this hand over trying to touch on me. And I just freaked out. Because, like, I wasn't used to that. I wasn't exposed to any of that before.
Right.
But that's what went on in there. So you had to learn to adapt and realize, like, pay attention. Like, who came in tonight? Is somebody by me? You know?
Mhm. Man, that's heavy. So, when do you feel like what age do you feel like everybody started to respect you?
I can't even say an age, but I would say in my 20s. It was in my 20s. Probably my mid-20s, maybe a little bit before then. Like, everybody started saying my name. But to me, back then, that was understandable. Like, it was okay for me. I accepted that reputation that I had. That's a reputation that I created. But once that I was going through the resentencing process and everything, that was a hard jacket to shake, because then they was looking at you like, you're this person. This is what this says. You couldn't get it off. Like, you know what I mean?
Okay. So while you're in there, when did how did you actually feel while you was in there? Did you feel like you should have been in there, or did you feel like you should have got a lesser penalty? Like, what is your thought process while you're in a grown prison at a young age?
I've always had a lot of remorse for what I've done. I mean, it took a long time to accept it because of the person I was growing up to be and knowing right from wrong. But when you see grown women killing their children, or even so much as doing vehicular homicide, to me, when you're drunk and you knowingly get behind a wheel, that's premeditation in itself to me, because you know the consequences of what could happen.
Right.
So when you're seeing people that have killed their kids, killing somebody driving, and they're getting out, and it's nothing. But you can have a juvenile kill a grown adult, you're spending the rest of your life, you don't get a chance. And that's something I will always disagree with right there. Because you're going to say I had a sound mind at 14. Well, you had a sound mind as an adult. You carried and took care of that child. You killed that child, but it's okay for you. But you better not do it this way. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense. But in all actuality, your brain ain't even developed at that time, especially at 14.
My whole thinking was way different when I was younger. Like, you're very impulsive. You're very easily influenced to what's around you. Your whole, like, rationality, like how you problem solve is way different.
Right. So when did the point come to where you started to realize all this and you started to change for the better?
I can't even actually look at you and tell you once I got resentenced. I want to say it was in November or December of 2013. I was taken back to Waterloo to get resentenced. The day I got back from resentencing, I received a ticket and I had got resentenced. And I continued to get in trouble. It took my father passing in 2015 for me to wake up and, like, it's time, I need to get home. You know what I mean? And I need to change some ways. So it didn't matter about me getting resentenced because I was already programmed that I was going to die there.
So when did you get when did they change the minor law to where you find out you was getting out?
I want to say it was in 2012. If I'm correct, it was in 2012 that it was changed.
Okay. So when it was changed, did you feel like, oh, I can get out now? Or did you think you were still going to be locked up for life?
I thought I would still be locked up because they were still messing with me. They knew, like, any little thing, if my name was mentioned or whatever else, they would come messing with me. I was like, you guys are just going to keep me here anyway, so I'm just going to keep living how I'm living, you know?
So when did it come to you that they were going to let you out?
When I had first initially seen the parole board, finally.
And when did you see the parole board?
I started seeing the parole board in 2017.
Okay. And when did they let you out?
I got out in November of 2020.
Okay. And how has it been since you've been out? Since 2020. Going in at 14, coming out in 2020. Is that when you came out?
Mm-hmm.
So how is it like when you first come home?
Well, you got to remember that's during the COVID pandemic that was first starting.
Mhm.
So when I initially got out and was taken to the work release here in Des Moines, I was quarantined in a room by myself for a week.
Mhm.
So you had to be quarantined with who you came with. Upon meeting with my PO, asking her question, I thought my PO my initial PO at this time would be more helpful as far as guidance.
Right.
No, I was told to go ask the people in the community. So that was a very big adjustment for me at that time.
Okay.
I wasn't able to see my family due to COVID. So I do
So they kept you separated.
at the first week, and then after a week, then you'll move in the other wing with the women. But
I mean, separated from people on the outside.
Yes.
Your family.
Yes.
Okay. So how long did it take until you was able to see your family?
It took me getting out. I ended up seeing them. You just find a way to see them, like circumvent the system, whatever you want to call it. But so that's what I had to do. But I paid it. I got a ticket for that, but I paid for that. But initially, like seeing them without any fear of anything was me getting out of the women's facility.
Okay. And so when you first come out and you can't see your family, what help did they have for you to help you to adjust to being out for the first time since you was 14?
Honestly, the system's a joke. I'm sorry. I know, and I'm not trying to sit here and like bash with your show,
Right,
but
right.
There could have been more things lined up for me to help me along with the process. A lot of things they expect you to know, like they're looking at me and seeing a grown woman, but in my head, I don't know anything. Does that
Right.
make sense?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
So that was a challenge for me, and so me trying to relay that to my PO, and to them it's a form of manipulation because you're not understanding what I'm seeing here.
Right.
Traffic, everything was too much for me.
Right.
I had to learn how to use the bus system. Now I've got lost several times, and especially in a town that I'm not from.
That's deep. What else? What other problems have you had?
I can't really say jobs because I got a job right away. I got started at Popeyes. That was my first job. And then I ended up getting a job driving a forklift at Haynes Jones and Cadbury. And then I got a job at Amazon, and I'm still at Amazon.
Okay.
So I haven't had problems there, but I have had problems finding people to rent to me.
Mhm.
And I did find someone, but it's high. But that is
Right.
very troublesome. Like, you can't find people that will
Right.
rent to you.
Do you feel like they didn't rent to you because they know who you was or knew about
They-
your case?
Yeah, after they do the background check, they said, sorry, but we can't risk losing our other tenants. They was worried that if they see my name or knew who I was, they would lose tenants.
Okay. So you found places to stay though,
Mm-hmm.
and did you get any help with that? Like any assistance on paying towards any rent or anything like that?
Absolutely not. I pay my own rent. I saved up money. I want to say I got out in 2020. That law changed in 2012. So from 2012 till I got out, I was only I saved $4,000.
Okay.
But when you get out, you have to pay $300 to your parole officer.
Mm-hmm.
You have to set up a payment plan for your restitution. So I'm paying more restitution out here now than what I was inside because they would only take 20% of your money incoming.
Right. Right.
And then when I got out, I had to, because I was on house arrest or however, I forgot how they called it because I ended up catching COVID, but I had a place. So I had to pay rent at my place 2 months before I was able to live there and pay rent at the facility. So then when I got to my place, I had to still pay rent at the facility where I'm not living and pay my rent where I am living. So my savings was gone. Would come visit me she got together a reentry team for me, so it necessarily wasn't called anything. Does that make sense?
So how did she find you?
Through one of my friends, a friend of a friend, and she just started to come see me. They took me, I want to say my last 2 years there was because they stopped doing reentry trips. At first, ICIW would take you on reentry trips to reintegrate you back into society. I had made it to DMAC. They were supposed to take me to Evelyn K. Davis, but they never took me. I went to the library. They took me out to eat the Smokey D's. Basically, it was just DMAC, but then they stopped taking you out, so I didn't have any more reentry as far as that.
Okay. So now that you're out adjusting to society, is there any other obstacles that you face that you feel like is kind of hindering you from your growth to adjusting out here?
I feel like I am hindered a lot in a lot of ways, or I feel like it's basically not so much as walking on eggshells. It's like there's no room for any type of failure. If you make a mistake, their response is to put a monitor on you or threaten you to go back to prison. There's not really like a support system from your PO. I'm at risk for a violation there. I'm not able to.
Even though if they're like successful, ain't getting in trouble, got a job, got a home, and just living a normal life.
Absolutely
You can't
not.
be around a person like that.
No, if they feel as though if you are on paper, more or less to me, you're the plague. Like, I better not be around you because they're still making wrong decisions because they're on the same type of status you are.
Right. So,
Just, I don't know. I'm not able to be an adult. It's like you're free, but you're not free because you're
Right.
treated like a child. Like, you can drink, it's legal, but I better not. You'll go back. You can go to the
Right.
casino.
did they ever tell you why they feel like they don't want you to drink? Did
Well,
they ever make mention of it?
they have mentioned that. I have no drug history in my record at all. I'm not a drug user.
Right.
To me, a person's got to be able to make mistakes to have growth. You got to have that. It builds your character as to who you are. But there's no room for me to make mistakes, if that makes sense. Like, you do
Right.
something, like you get a talking to or whatever. There's just no room for error for me.
Right. So it's like you got an opportunity at life, but you feel like they really don't want you to have this opportunity at life.
Absolutely.
Even though you have remorse about what happened, and everybody should get a second chance. The Christian believes that in forgiveness, that people should be forgiven, especially if they have remorse. But I guess some people just don't have that in them to forgive.
Even Kim Reynolds says she's for prison reform and second chances, but there's no second chances here.
Right.
And if you want to get technical on that, I can speak on that all day. There's not, because the prison system to me should be on the stock market as much, because each head you're getting so much money for each head, and you get so much money for each head of a returnee.
Right.
So it's like a revolving door that they want to keep cycling for that money, and I will say that with all confidence because I've seen it. But yet you're for prison reform. No, you're not.
Right. Because you take money out of the community, prevention, where people were doing things in the community to help children from going to prison. You take that away so they get in trouble to go to
To go
prison.
back.
And you build your money up.
Yes.
So yeah, that is most definitely a whole nother topic with that. But what other things do you feel like? Because I know it's important for you to come out here and be a law-abiding citizen, which you've been, work a job, pay your taxes, what they want you to do, because if you don't, the IRS is going to come down on you.
Make sure you pay your restitution.
Yeah, pay your restitution.
Yes.
Okay. So, as you're out here, and you want to be law-abiding, and you're getting your second chance, even though some people feel like you don't, is there any other things that you feel like just ain't right with you trying to move forward in life?
For me, I'm still at the same spot I was when I came out. I have no room for error. If I make a mistake, Their solution is put an ankle monitor on you and start you over, keep you right there. They're never trying to work with you. I will say, speak for me. So I feel like anything I can give them to send me back or any excuse, they will do that in a heartbeat. There is no room for error.
Right. But you try to help in the community, though. You try to give back.
I try. And
So tell me about some of the things that you have done already since you've been out here to help others.
I don't know if you guys are familiar with Ken Ratliff. I've helped him with a lot of the food pantries there. I took one of his classes there. Is how I got acquainted with him. Like he did, it was through Viridian, a bank, like to learn how to do. I didn't know anything about banking, saving money, whatever. But through that class, I was able to by the end of it.
Okay.
So
You did that, and what else have you done?
I've gotten a lot of people, like even with Amazon's, because it's a tax write-off for felons.
Mm-hmm.
So I know I was a big one, like because they always be like, "How did she get hired?" Well.
Right.
I don't have any theft, and it is a tax write-off. For some companies will utilize that.
Okay.
But I know that's one thing that Kim Reynolds says for companies, because they used to have a lot of them come out and speak with us and so forth, and about using this tax. There's I can't remember the exact name, but I have the pamphlet for it, that you can present it to the company you're trying to work for, and just basically let them know, if you hire me, you get a tax write-off.
Okay. I know you have done speeches too.
Yes.
Certain events.
Yes.
I want to say Bobby Pate had a talent show that you spoke at.
No, I was supposed to attend that.
Oh, okay.
Something happened within my family. I had to go up. I didn't attend that, but I did attend Volume 85 with Camilla Stevens. I did do that. I have spoke at my church. I go to Hope Elam.
Okay. And what did you speak about there?
Basically, just told them a little bit about my story and about how it's been, pretty much what I'm doing here, how it's been since I've gotten out. I did a podcast. My brother has a podcast. It's called Live for Tale, and I did one with him. I've spoken to several other people, Akeo, and we were supposed to do some things. It's hard to get with him, and then with his schedule and my schedule, that we're supposed to be working on something. So
to end this, tell me, what do you want to give back? What do you really want to do to give back to the community?
My main goal has been, from even before I got out, I wanted to eliminate every article that I had. My brother ended up getting arrested before me leaving. So I wanted to wrap that in and just talk about my life story, what it can do. You never know. I didn't wake up that day to set out to kill somebody. That wasn't my plan.
Right.
You know what I mean? You never know what's going to happen in that day. You never know who you're around or what. You just don't know. So I've always wanted to be a motivational speaker and get my story together and to talk to kids.
So what would you tell the kids? One thing or a couple of things that you would tell the kids today?
Well, always what your parents say is not wrong. There is some truth to that.
Why be careful about who you hang out with?
Being influenced is real. And what you see or what you're hearing, and I know people, like even the songs today, it's nothing, it's just a song. No, that's in your head, like real life. And I didn't really understand that until like even getting out listening to that, because that stuff can sometimes, can make you angry, put you in your feelings. But they got to be mindful of certain situations. Like I wish I was more mindful, and I wish I would have listened, even though what was going on in my household that was so traumatic to me. But what my parents were telling me was right. It was just their way of talking.
What one thing were they telling you that they were right about?
Stay out of them streets. My father was very right. Stay out of them streets. You think your friends are your friends? Where are your friends now? He even when I got locked in, where are your friends now? And he was right. Not one letter from any of them.
That's tough. So that will conclude this episode. Thank you for coming on to the show and talking. And do you want to leave the kids with one last thing?
What I would leave them with is keep dreaming. Your dreams are real. Like even when I was down, I always dreamed I was going to get out, and I got out. You know, you got to keep dreaming and believing. Keep dreaming and believing. And this is Gangster or Innocent,
This episode is Gangster to Law Abiding. So thank you for joining. Peace out.
Now, I want to elaborate a little bit on some of the footage I've seen as far as Miss Veal is concerned, where she made the statement that, at that ripe and young age, she got out there in the street because she felt more loved in the street than she did from her own family. And that's an issue a lot of our younger people have to face and have to deal with in life. They feel more respect, more love, they're more embraced by individuals in the street. But then Ruthann went on to elaborate on the fact that in all actuality, that's all fakeism. Because when you find yourself in trouble, when you find yourself in prison, all those individuals that profess to love you in the street are nowhere to be found. And that reality becomes very illuminating when you get in prison. Been there, done that. And so I could actually relate to her when she made that statement, because she did 27 years in the women's penitentiary here in Iowa. And like she said, she didn't get one letter from none of her so-called friends. And that's the same adversity and loneliness and suffering a lot of the youth and young men and young women in our state and around the globe is going to feel if they continue to think that the street provides them with what they're missing at home. Your parents are hard on you, your brothers and sisters might be hard on you, your aunts and uncles might be hard on you. They're hard on you for a particular reason. They just don't want to see you suffer the consequences of stupidity. And that's what it is, stupidity and ignorance. And there's nothing wrong with being stupid when you're young. There's nothing wrong with being ignorant when you're young. That happens to each and every one of us. I did the same thing, was ignorant. Until I got into them prisons.
But knowing right from wrong, though.
Knowing right from wrong is very key to that. And that's what your parents and your community teach you. That's what your churches and your schools teach you. Knowing right from wrong. You got laws that govern our society.
So really, you believe that a certain way of life is the right way to go, even though you know it's wrong. And then you end up getting locked up, doing a whole bunch of time in prison, and then realizing that wasn't the way.
Yeah, that's a rude awakening.
Right.
That's a rude awakening right there. She went on to speak about, she went on to talk about the time that, she went into, after her arrest, she was waived to adult court. And if you follow the news and the media, you'll see that most people that are charged as an adolescent usually get waived to adult court. And that's because they can give you the life sentence. And prior to these laws being changed, anybody that was waived to adult court got life in prison without parole. They may not have got the death penalty. Iowa doesn't have the death penalty, so that's a fortunate circumstance. But you're going to go to prison for the rest of your life, and that's a lonely, long life. She did 27 years in prison, and I'm sure that it was very traumatic for her during that particular period of time. And she went on to explain about, I remember when I first started going to prison in the 70s, you had to walk down to an open air shower or use a community restroom to do your business. But now she went on to say how modern prisons are. And what she meant by that is you have everything you need in that little closet that they call a cell. You got your shower in there, you got your toilet in there, you got your bed in there, and I think it's 8 feet by 11. So if I would suggest, if you're out here on the retarded stuff, that you measure 8 by 11, because everything that you need is going to be in that little cell. And you might have 2 people in there with you. You and a cellmate. And let me tell you something. That is not a comfortable life. You're going to be miserable. You're going to get tired of your cellmate. You might even want to do something to your cellmate. It gets on your nerves so bad. Because you don't get to choose who your cellmate is. In certain United States penitentiaries, on the federal level, you can choose your cellmate. The COs don't, correctional officers, they don't put people in your cell. And then when you go up in them cells in the United States penitentiaries, the first thing they're going to tell you is, I need to see your paperwork. Because they ain't going to let you in that cell if you cooperated with the federal government. Bottom line, you got to find you somewhere else to go, or you got to go up top, 23 hours a day in a cell, 1 hour of recreation. That's the way it's played in the federal prison system. Now, with that being said, on November 2013, Ms. Veal was resentenced. She says that she had a very traumatic effect because prior to the resentencing, she never did believe that she was going to get out. And with the type of sentence of life or 30 years in prison or something along that line, you take on the mindset that I'm going to spend the rest of my life in prison. You don't believe you're going to get out because, I mean, it's just far-reaching. So you think that ain't nothing going to change to aid and assist you so that you can regain your freedom. And there's a lot of individuals in prison now under unconstitutional sentences, under unjust sentences, that feel that they're never going to get out unless something impacts and affects that particular sentence. And that's what Reform Crime Sentencing, rcsnow.org, and Gangster or Rich Moines Productions is pushing for. We're trying to make those changes to become appropriate so individuals that are suffering an unjust sentence or an unconstitutional sentence can get relief and regain their freedom. Since the change, she said that, she lost her father and she wasn't, and like I said, she said she wasn't going to get out. And so she felt a sense of loss. And when you're in prison for those major periods of time, I mean, you're going to lose family members. You're going to lose people that you care about. The people may not care about you because, like she said, didn't nobody reach out to her while she was in prison for 27 years. So it was obvious to her, she felt that didn't nobody care about her. So then she took on the attitude of conforming to the way of life in prison. And so what that does is you create a lot of problems for yourself while you're in prison. And you create a track record that may not be conducive to you being an eligible candidate for parole or computation of sentence, only because at such a young age, you don't care because you feel you're never going to get out of prison. So what do you got to lose? I might as well act this way. I might as well do this. But when the law changed and she became a potential eligibility for release, she started changing her conduct up. She started doing the things that she needed to do so that she could eventually gain her release. And she did that. Now she's incurring some difficulties out here in so-called free society because of the stipulations and requirements that have been put upon her through the administration of parole. But she's trying to deal with them to the best of her ability. And I thought that was a well-taken point that she put out about that, because just because you come out of prison, you're still on supervised release, you're still in a halfway house, you're still on parole or whatever, you're going to have individuals who never give you the benefit of the doubt of thinking that you're a changed person. Their whole mission in life is to cause you a problem and to send you back to prison, because she spoke to the fact that to the taxpayers, that's $33,000 a person that's in them prisons. So that's a mighty, multi-billion-dollar budget. And so they're not trying to lose that resource. They'd rather have you in prison than out here in so-called free society, paying taxes and taking care of your family. And that's what she's trying to do. But she's incurring some difficulties along the way. Hopefully, through the blessings of God, she'll be blessed and be able to overcome those hurdles that appear to come from people that are managing her. With that being said, she went on to speak about, as I said, the restrictions and the interaction with people. 27 years in prison, 25 years in prison. You don't know nobody but people that been in prison. You don't know nobody out here in so-called free society anymore. So who can you relate to? Who can you interact with? And so when that restriction is put upon you, you feel alone, adrift in a society that you can't even comprehend after a quarter of a century in prison. Everything's changed. And I just spoke about this before. I said, when I went into prison, they didn't even have cell phones. When I got out of prison, I couldn't even negotiate a phone, drive a car, walk across a bridge, manage the bus routes. And that's a terrible feeling. She didn't receive much attention from community-based organizations, and Rich Moines Productions and rcsnow.org is focused on that particular aspect because we have a lot of people re-entering our societies, and they need those apparatuses that profess to be about re-entry to be there for them, so that that re-entry can be a smooth process. It ain't just about a person getting out of prison and go finding a job and working that job and then trying to fend their way through a society. It's important to have those apparatuses in place that our re-entry programs and our prison programs that are directly connected to the community are doing the things that they're being federally funded for and state funded for to aid and assist family members and loved ones that are coming out of prison. But we're hearing through our interaction that these programs are non-existent. They're not doing anything. The only program I can speak comfortably about is Rich Moines Productions and 4 Live Images, Mr. Robert Pate's program, that are actually doing something. Let me take that back. I do have to say there's some good people at Fort Des Moines. There's some good people up there. Now, you got some church up there too now. Don't get it twisted. But you got some good people up there that are truly trying to aid and assist people that are coming out of prison. And a lot of that falls back on the prisoner coming out of prison. Because the first thing they do when they want to get out is what? Act up. Because they're out here in so-called free society. This is a different ball game now. They're playing a different game now. It ain't like it was when I first started doing time in prison in 1975. This is a whole different ball game. And people need to be conscious of that. If you want to be successful on release, you got to put in the work. Just like when you're out here doing this and you're out here doing that and it leads to a stint in prison, you're putting in the work. Well, when you want to get out of prison, stay out of prison, you got to put in the work too. It works both ways. And that's what we try to do. We try to educate. I ain't putting nobody down. I ain't speaking like I'm better than anybody, none of that. All I'm telling you is it works both ways. You got to put in the work and you can be successful. There are some groups out here that will aid and assist you in that transition. But you got to be putting in the work. She talked about Mr. Ken Ratliff and the program he has. I attended that program, going through it right now, dealing with credit. Man, I done learned so much in that program. Boy, I'm getting ready to bump my credit up. I'm getting ready to bump it up. And I'm thankful for that because that program has taught me how to manage my money, how to get my credit up, so I can buy the things that I need to buy and act like an everyday, ordinary citizen here in the United States. And with that being said, I hope that, after you view her footage, that you glean something, from the expression that she put forth as it relates to her ordeal, her remorse, and hopefully her change in life. And, it's still early. She ain't been out here but a couple years yet, but she seems to be adamant about the changes that she's trying to make, the remorse that she felt regarding the incident that led to her stint in prison. But one thing that you have to remember as a human being, she wasn't but 14 years old. We don't know how she was thinking. We don't know what's on her mind. We don't know how she was influenced. But influences in our society, and she spoke about the music, influences in our society impacts and affects each and every one of us. I go through it every day, and I'm almost 70 years old. I go through it every day. I'm influenced by this, I'm influenced by that. I get mad about this, I get depressed about that. But that support group that you have around you is key in you being able to overcome the burdens that you face in everyday life. In prison, you don't face those particular burdens. Everything's taken care of for you. But when you're out here, yeah, you got burdens, you got obligations, you got responsibilities. And to be a real man or a real woman, you have to step up to the plate and address those responsibilities and commitments that you have, to loved ones, to friends, to family, to people that are there to support you. And so I'm mindful of that, as I believe that Miss Ruthann Veal was mindful of the fact that, she has responsibilities, she has obligations, and she wants to do everything in her power to succeed in satisfying those responsibilities and obligations. But there's individuals who sit in the seat of authority, who sit in the seat of power, that would do everything in their power, out of bias, out of jealousy, out of envy, out of hate, to deter you from that particular path. But you
You
have to
know,
remain conscious, even in strife.
One thing I want to add to that, her being out here and wanting to help the youth, she can save somebody's life. She can tell her experience and what not to do and help a young person so they don't kill nobody and go through what she went through. That's how I always see it. When somebody gets a second chance, I feel like when they want to give back to the community and they want to help out, that they're going to save a life, that they're going to talk a kid out of something that they don't even know that they're probably got on their mind to do, but they're going to talk them out of doing something and have them go through another path that is a righteous path, a successful path.
And that's a very profound illustration, Mr. Bruton, that you just put out there, because a lot of people got it twisted. They think that people that went to college and got degrees here and got degrees this are the best orators to demonstrate to somebody who's went or thinking about or influenced to do afoul of the laws that govern this particular society. And that's not necessarily the case. You know, you got mentors out here and things of that nature, but in order to really speak to a subject matter, you have to experience the subject that you're speaking about. College don't teach you about prison. There ain't no, the only way you're gonna learn about prison is if you go up in there, and then you're gonna learn about prison. I mean, bottom line. So just because you got a college degree don't make you an authority on prison.
Right.
But you know, men and women giving themselves titles, I'm an expert at this, I'm an expert at that. No, you're not.
You know what? When it comes to AA, right?
Yes, sir.
Somebody that goes for drinking,
Yes, sir.
when they get a sponsor, it got to be somebody that
Come on,
overcome
man.
drinking.
Come on, man.
So they don't want her to be around ex-felons or felons that are doing good. She can't associate with them so she can know how to do better or get some hints on how to do better. She got to be around people that ain't been there, ain't never been through nothing she been through.
Let me tell you something.
So how is she supposed to adjust from a person that ain't never been through nothing?
Let me tell you something,
Yeah.
Colonel. You are a success story.
Yes, sir.
You are a success story, man.
Yes, sir.
So can't nobody ever say that a person affiliating with you can't improve through the influences that you provide for them, because you are a success story.
Right.
So truth manifests itself. And you the truth of that demonstration.
Right.
With
A
that being-
one-time offender too.
That's right.
At 18.
That's right, cuz. That's right. When
So-
you was a young man.
When I was a young man, that really needs a real second chance. And we're gonna get on that later.
And with that being said, again, my name is Jerome Deering Bay, here with Chuck Bruton from Rich Moynes Productions and rcsnow.org, and I bid you a very, very good night.
All right, peace out.